I'm Terri Murphy, Senior Editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph, and the founder of the Women's Wisdom Network. And today we have some great wisdom in Women in Business, and her name is Trupti Gokani. And what she has to say is something you need to listen to, because with all of the crazy stress, misinformation, one day peanut butter is good for you, the next day it's not. She's amazing. I want you to come on camera first and say hello.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me tell you girls why I want to interview you. And the way we're getting interviewed is pretty interesting. This is a boy, I'm going to say the word boy, I went to high school with, who went into one of her sessions and came out and said, "You have to talk to Terri Murphy." Forget that it was a boys' school and a girls' school, and forget that it was 1.5 million years ago. But bless his heart, thank you, John. We'll mention him because we'll send him this. But a board-certified neurologist, health and mindset coach, Ayurvedic expert, master NLP practitioner. I mean, the only thing you missed was bungee cord jumping champion. I mean, you're amazing, and because you had all this medical background, you found it necessary to find this path. And so you wrote this great book called The Stress RX, The Mysterious Mind Made. It's made the Amazon list. Uh, it's so timely. Let's talk about what's happening today in health.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about it, right? It's an amazing time. It's a confusing time. It's where we're breaking a lot of barriers in terms of how we're approaching things and looking at things, and yet we're also creating more chaos and confusion at the same time, right? So
Oh, you think?
I think, right? So I'm grateful I
One,
have.
one minute it's eat sprouts, the next minute it's eat
Right,
cow. I mean,
right.
seriously,
Yeah.
uh, what's
Should you
what's
be like
good?
plant-based? Should you be eating meat? What should you do? Should you drink milk? Should you not drink milk? It's very interesting. And all I'm going to say is I am so grateful and thankful I've been in practice for 30 years and done the work I've done so I can offer you and your viewers some clarity. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the reason there's confusion is because of what they teach us in Eastern medicine is each of us are unique. We're not one size fits all. As much as Western medicine wants us to fit in a very specific box, have very specific symptoms that make equal that disease, or this means that you deserve that type of medication because you have that. It isn't that clear. And Eastern medicine teaches us that we're all unique physiologies. And the more we understand ourselves and we get a sense of who we are, then we can apply the eating habits and the lifestyle habits and the exercise habits. But you first have to get to know you first. That's key.
Yeah, well, why as a board certified neurologist so first of all, I think you need to talk about
Sure.
Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah.
I got to meet Deepak,
Oh,
who I was delighted to meet because he's my size, and just a beautiful man. I mean, you look into his eyes and it goes forever. And he introduced me to Ayurvedic medicine. Uh, Talk to us about why would you study that when you were studying the other stuff?
yeah, and it was an interesting juxtaposition of time because I was a first year medical student. I was struggling with sleep, having severe insomnia. And of all things, Deepak Chopra came into my life at that time too, because I was struggling and I didn't know what to do. My dad's a physician. He did my
Ooh.
exam. He's a primary care doctor, just retired in the last few years. He did my physical exam, checked my labs. Now, this is 30 years ago. And he said, "You're fine, Trupti. I don't know why you can't sleep." And yet here I am so deprived of sleep and so stressed, but yet I didn't even know how stress looked. I didn't know how it presented itself. And I said, "I've got to have something wrong with me, Dad, because I can't sleep." So he said, "Your thyroid is fine, your blood sugars are fine, there's nothing wrong with you." And that's the last thing you want to hear when you're struggling is there's nothing wrong with you because I wanted to be diagnosed. I wanted to have something. So then, because of my not having an answer with my father, I went to see a therapist. And the therapist actually asked me some key questions and said, "Do you feel stressed out?" And I actually told her I didn't feel stressed because at that time, that was my personality. The personality that brought on the sleep issues was the only personality I knew. The hard driving perfectionistic go, go, go was
I was just going to
right,
say, neurotic
right.
overachiever.
Overachiever.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. So when you say, "Are you stressed? Are you feeling?" You ask the person, "Are you feeling out of alignment?" I said no, because quite frankly, that got me into med school. That got me to be very, productive with exercising and getting my things done. And I was very, I thought, in a good state. But that is the state that brought me into the sleep issues. So then I kept looking at different avenues and finally went to see a psychiatrist. This was the pivotal moment. The psychiatrist in 10 minutes asked me 8 questions, and they're actually the classic questions that are asked for depression. I didn't know. Do you feel sad? Do you have insomnia? Do you have guilt? Do you have low energy? I kept saying yes, 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 yes. And he's like, you've got depression. Here's Prozac. And I was like, wait, wait. New diagnosis, new prescription, never had anything in my life. And I walked out of the office in 10 minutes. It was a 10-minute visit. Prescription was ripped up, and I said, I've got to figure the answer out. And that's when I found Deepak Chopra in the bookstore because I went to the bookstore and found Ayurvedic medicine. And I had no idea what Ayurveda was, even though I grew up in Chicago, Indian of origin. I was actually born in Africa, so I didn't really grow up with Indian wisdom, the Ayurvedic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my dad's a very Western doctor. So, and in India, by the way, this Eastern medicine was actually suppressed when the British colonized India. So when my dad did his
Oh,
training,
okay.
yeah, he wasn't really introduced to it. So here I was in the bookstore looking at books, and I found Deepak Chopra's Perfect Health book. And in the book, it was such a different way of looking at your well-being. The questions were, do you feel that you move very fast, talk very fast? Do you have constipation? Do you have problems with falling asleep? Do you feel cold? And I was saying, yes, 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 yes. Oh, well, then you have we call it Vata, V-A-T-A, Vata
Right.
imbalance, your excess wind, right? Excess air and space element. So Ayurveda, which just so listeners, so they know what this is, Ayur means life, Veda is wisdom. It's the wisdom of life, wisdom of longevity. We have 5 elements that make up who we are as individuals, as any sentient being, being a plant or an animal or a human being. 5 elements, air, space, fire, earth, water. Some of us born into air and space, the Vata, moving, going, doing types, talk a lot, go a lot, move a lot, love to be the life of the party, right? And then we're very like the Vatas are also very, artistic and musical. The Pitta, more medium frame, competitive, kind of the type A. Fire, you can see what needs to be done. You're great at running things and organizing things. If you're the Pitta, you're a little competitive, right? And then the Kapha is the earth and water type, grounded, bigger frame, more relaxed. And it's interesting that bigger size is actually good in Ayurveda because that gives you resilience. Earth and water allows you to deal with stress because you're more grounded, you're quieter, you're more internal, more introspective. You're not moving and going like the Vata. So the 3 types you're born into them. And the beauty is when you start to get symptoms, one of those imbalances shows up. So I call it, I have a stress quiz on my website, but you might be too windy. It's
I know. I know.
yeah.
You were gonna tell us how to find that.
Yeah. Basically, the website Trupti Gokani MD. What I did is I put together a quick quiz because I thought, not everyone's. I appreciate not everyone's going to read, the first book, The Mysterious Mind, or the second book, The Stress RX. I know everyone's busy and looking to get some answers, and sometimes, don't have the ability to put in the time to read at the moment. So I said, how about this? Let me put together a quick quiz. You take the quiz, you get to know your type, and you start to think Ayurvedically. You put the Ayurvedic hat on. So the quiz looks at, are you windy, fiery, earthy? Well, in my time, in my early years, I was windy, so windy. And everything I checked off was along with the windy, right? And I said, okay, what do I do? So, instead of drinking cold drinks, I was always drinking, and this was February in Chicago. You go right now. I was drinking cold ice drinks. You're supposed to, if you're Vata, drink warm. I'm holding a warm drink here. Warm grounding, cardamom, cinnamon. Think of grounding spices. Think about the fall. Grounding vegetables, like things that are like, root vegetables are very grounding, sweet potatoes. So you start to bring food in. You start to bring the state of the drinks in. You start to think about exercise. What was I doing at that time? I was moving vinyasa yoga. Actually, not vinyasa yoga. I hadn't taken up yoga yet. I was doing kickboxing, moving, kickboxing. And that's the last thing a Vata should do. Vata should do restore.
Let them hear that. We were kickboxing
Yeah.
because we wanted to be a princess when we were a little girl. And
Yes.
now,
Yes. Right.
now we want to
Right.
beat the
I
Jesus
would
out
have
of
totally. And it was
people.
that whole like persona. Remember that persona that was like, that was me, the kickboxer, going, moving, drinking my cold drinks. And I thought that was the physiology. That was a healthy physiology. I was shocked. Everything I was doing, honestly, was wrong. And yet I was told I was healthy. So what is health, right? What is health for you? And I think that's what we should want to explore a little bit is looking at, how Western medicine gives us this belief system that we're healthy. Unfortunately, there's a lot that's missed in Western medicine, coming from a Western medicine physician, gone Eastern.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
And you know
uh,
that.
Yes, I do. Of
Hmm.
course, I came from an immigrant family that just went, well, if you're sick, you get to wash the floor. I
Yeah.
mean, there was, yeah, you can change that mindfulness right away. Well, the
Right
first
away.
chapter of your book is Healthy is Not What You Think. And
Yeah.
so, what's your definition of stress? I mean, because some people thrive on stress. Some people use stress as the excuse to not pay attention to other things.
Right.
But you're the big deal. You tell us what is your definition of stress?
And just to preface this, I've been studying stress for 25 years. I started studying stress in my first clinic where I actually did cortisol stress testing. And I actually looked and I published an abstract on 83 patients and found them to be adrenally fatigued. So I've got hard data to tell you what I'm going to say is that most of the world is living, like you said, is addicted and just living on stress. And it is a very sad thing because we are imbalancing ourselves more than the world is imbalancing us. We're creating that imbalance. And so let me go into what stress really is. It's when the demands placed on the organism are more than the organism can handle. The demands placed on your system are more than the system can handle. But let me ask you this. Do we have a choice on the demands placed upon us?
Well, yes, we do, and it's if I can tell you what I've learned doing the Women's Wisdom Network this many years,
Yeah.
we don't know how to say no.
Thank you.
And we did not rehearse this, by the way, just so you know. I
You're
just know
right.
that women go,
She's reading my mind. That's exactly right.
no,
Yes.
no. Yeah. It's
Yes.
as if we have, that whole analogy, which is old for old people. Ginger Rogers could dance, yeah, backwards in heels. We just have to be super warrior women. We can't look weak. And so we're going to do it. Just watch us. We're going to bleed to death, but we're going to do it. So, yeah, so you're right. Go. Keep going. This is
We
so
we
good.
we do that, and it is sad, and yet it is what it is. That we as women, I think there's so much, and there's so many reasons why, and we know some of the reasons why we have to speak up more and raise our voice and be heard. And I understand why. Yet the reality is because we push so hard to be seen, to be heard, to be on all the time, we've lost our feminine creature, like that feminine being. Very, when you think of hatha yoga, I'm just going to take a little segue here. I trained in hatha yoga, and it was fascinating to me after all these years because during that early time when I had sleep issues, and by the way, the conclusion of the story, I never took the Prozac. I was sleeping again in a month, followed Ayurvedic principles, and I knew that at some point in my life I was going to study Ayurveda. But it was after I finished my board certification and became a neurologist, and I brought that into my practice. So to kind of go into this whole hatha yoga thing, one of the things I did was hatha, breath-based yoga because I was reading on the importance of yoga. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I was a kickboxer. I was doing all this crazy,
I
and
was just going to say,
I was in step aerobics. Like I didn't want to do hatha yoga. It was so boring. I was listening to fun music, and I'm like, really? But we resist what we need the most, don't we? So hatha yoga, for as much as I resisted it, I was desperate because I wanted to sleep, and I didn't want to quit medical school because I was close to quitting. So I started practicing it every day, begrudgingly. Stopped doing the kickboxing, and I realized hatha, ha is your exhalation, tha is your inhalation. Hatha is the balance of your exhalation, the masculine side, and your inhalation, the feminine. And very often we are so masculine as women in our lives that we forget to take that inhalation and receive and be and to be taken care of ourselves, nurture and nourish ourselves.
key
Hello?
words here, girls, take care of you. And I hate when people say that. Let me rephrase that. I despise when they say that. I get a little
Yeah,
snarkly when they say
yeah,
that. Take care of
yeah,
yourself. And
yeah.
you think, oh, settle down.
Settle down, George. Come on. I need to take care of myself. I can do this. And it's only when the system crashes. And now we're in a time where, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say this. How many women are struggling, with these symptoms that are basically in the kind of the weight I have? I want to lose weight. I'd like more energy, but I'd like to balance my hormones. I'd like improved sleep. I'm feeling that I'm not in control of my eating. I'm hearing this a lot. This whole kind of picture of weight to be improved, energy to be improved, sleep improvement. When you look at that whole bucket, those symptoms that I hear, very often it's because we've overtaxed our system. We've pushed our adrenals. We've said too many yeses. We have said yes to too many others and not yes to ourselves. So for as much as I say, yeah, do the self-care, I get kind of tough on that as a coach. I'm like, no, boundary setting it is a must for you because when your adrenals drop out, which I saw, like I told you, 2012, I published that study on adrenal fatigue. Ariana Huffington wrote a book called Thrive. She talks about her adrenal issues. And what you'll find, and that's one of the reasons I think she started her other platform, Thrive Global, a lot of it was this idea that women, we just almost don't even know how to turn off. And, I go to exercise class, and it's interesting. This morning I did a yoga class, and it's a new gym that I joined, and it was a very warm room. And they didn't say that it was a vinyasa flow class, and it didn't say that it was a warm room. And usually they write that in there. I walked in, I was like, oh God, it feels like it's 80 degrees in here. And now most would say, well, that's great. It's February in Chicago. You're going into a warm room. The biggest challenge about doing warm-based or hot yoga and not being in alignment with your own body temperature is when you're in the midst of the practice, you don't know when to slow it down. So, hatha yoga, it's all about using your breath and breath guiding your movement. And if you start to hold your breath, tighten up, and you can't breathe through the poses, that means you're overtaxing and you're stressed. So, how can we gauge our stress? When we're doing a hot yoga class, it's hot and you're pushing, and you have no idea what your physiology is because you're feeling hot already. The heat your body warming up gives you a guidance to your adrenal state, your stress state, and says, hey, demands placed on me are more than I can handle. Back to the stress thing. Let me take it down a notch and breathe a little bit more. And it doesn't mean you have to take away from the workout. You could still strengthen the body, really activate those muscles, become strong and flexible, yet not push adrenals, especially when your daytime is all on, your off time is on, your on and off time. When is off time? If your
Yeah,
exercise class is on.
exactly. I don't think that we as women, and I'll say this carefully because I'm not,
Mhm.
away, but we get so accustomed to a level of stress that we don't realize that it's stress. And that I've always been envious of those women that make everything look effortless. They show up, they've got the right accessories, they smell good, they float in, their faces are not stressed to death. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I even have access to a voice stress assessment, and you can't even game that
Ah,
because I tried. I
yeah.
tried. I tried to sound all chipper. Yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't work.
I
So
love Wow.
stress shows up in your voice. It shows up in your physiology, and we think it's a badge of honor to be able to come through it. And it really isn't, because that's why we wake up with these ailments.
Yeah.
Because as you're going to tell us, the body. Um,
Starts to show itself.
yeah, and then there's in your book, and the second, you've got resolving the conflict within, which is really where it all starts. I mean, you had to be so pressed to the wall that you had to find
Yeah.
a solution,
Yeah.
and clearly it was not prescriptive for you.
Oh, not at all.
But you have a personality issue as well. I mean, the people that are calmer,
Yeah.
um, sometimes we are in biased judgment and saying, you better step it up here, and we don't understand that they have more power than we do because we're so digiphrenic.
I'm so glad you said that because oftentimes it's that kapha, quiet, introspective person that is probably the most thoughtful and has the best thing to say and the most wisdom to share because they've been perceiving, receiving, understanding. Vata, windy energy, is often a lot of talking. And I know this, I'm a Vata. I get it. I went Vata imbalance for a long time and I'm working on it still to this day. Yet there's a lot of talking and not a lot of listening and hearing and understanding. And the more we slow it down, the
This is why the universe put us together, kids, because I study communication on other than conscious levels, neurolinguistic, as we talked about, because you're also an NLP practitioner, micro expressions. I mean, there are things that your body, I say, betray you. My partner says, prove. So I know that there is a link between dis-ease
yeah,
and stress. And
yeah,
so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, whatever, I've got this, let's hear what Trupti has to say about this, because
yeah,
that dis-ease manifests itself uh, in a way. And I just want to add this. So I had a manager once. I was on my third level, my third time with pneumonia. And he said, sometimes you just got to sharpen the axe to cut more wood. And I thought to myself, having been a farm kid, yeah, if you have a dull axe, you're going to work a lot harder. And that just kind of resonated with me. And I think that you're about to tell us a little bit about
I sure.
how that dis-ease manifests itself physically in the physical.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy. Thinking about that sharpening. When it comes down to it, I was looking at myself, looking at this physiology that I was having, and at that time, the sleep issues early on, and really had never ventured into a world where I didn't feel well. I was grateful to be pretty healthy when I was younger. So this is the first time in my life where I was experienced that early sense of imbalance. And it wasn't quite a diagnosis at that point, yet you could say that early insomnia was going to be becoming chronic because of the time I spent in that state. And yet, when you look at disease in the Western world, very often there are these subtle, not so subtle, but physiological shifts. The neck gets tight. We start to get some headaches. We start to get some, sleep issues that maybe not, problems falling asleep or not staying asleep. We may find ourselves having maybe a little bit of digestive issues, some constipation, some bloating. And this is our body that's starting to signal us, you're in danger, you're in danger, you're in danger. And that gentle nudge starts to get louder if we ignore it. The more we suppress, the more we hold back, the more we say, no, no, I've got too much to do. I cannot say no. I've got to keep pushing past, even though my head is hurting or my stomach is hurting or my neck is tight. I'm going to push past, skip lunch, get to that meeting, make sure I get this done and get this accomplished, and I'll catch up later with myself. And
Which we
because of
don't
that,
do.
yeah, and that is so fascinating. Even skipping lunch, it's so amazing to me how many people push through lunch. In Eastern medicine, lunch is the most important meal of the day because the sun's at its peak, you make the most digestive enzymes. And how many imbalances I see because of that repetitive pattern of pushing through and saying yes to someone else and no to ourselves, right? And so as the brain is working here, it's trying to give you those signals. The nervous system is getting activated. The sympathetic system is like warning you with some signals. You go into one of these three states. So the Vata windy state is literally the freeze state. When you think of wind freeze, the neck gets tight. It's like imagine wind blowing on you, you feel cold, right? Your neck gets tight, your colon gets tight. So there's constipation, there's gas and bloating, and there's neck tightness, and then that can turn into a headache, anxiety, hello, anxiety, fear, ADHD symptoms. That's all freeze, that's all wind energy. And very often we get the subtle hints first before it becomes something. Before my migraine patients got severe migraines, they were getting neck pain and tension headaches, but they were ignoring them or taking an Advil or taking an Excedrin migraine, right? And that's what happens is we skip a bowel movement. Okay, no big deal. It's a little constipated. No big deal. It's traveling. No, that is a big deal because constipation is linked to Parkinson's disease. 20 years before Parkinson's disease, they find that patients are constipated. And
Wow.
yeah, and anxiety is another one that's linked to Parkinson's disease. So why? Because that's wind energy. And think about the Parkinsonian person, right? The neck is tight, they're shuffling, they're like their hand is shaking, extra movement in the body. That's windy energy, right? And so fiery is that hot-headed, angry state. Yet we know when we're a little edgy, we're feeling off, a little nausea, queasy, get the reflux after we eat. Those aren't signs that you should skip because that's how stress shows up. It's a disconnect from your birth state. Your birth state is supposed to be this balanced, maybe kapha, but because you've been living this intense, skipping meals, go, 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 saying yes to everything state, you start getting more fired up in pitta. And the quiz looks at, how fiery are you? And are you fiery? And then what happens is then it turns into disease. So stress is that disconnect. We start to get the symptoms. And then disease is when it stays there long enough the body physiology changes, you start to get secondary tissue injury, and then it becomes a diagnosis. But why not catch things early? Or if you have a disease, why not say, what can I do to mitigate and reduce the symptoms? So maybe then the medications will work more effectively, or maybe, hey, maybe I can taper the medicines over the course of time. How about that? I saw that happen in my clinic all the time. It takes effort. I'm not going to say this is easy, but the actual work is literally what you kind of started with is boundary setting. Once you start with that, then, boundary setting. I'm gonna have lunch. Boundary setting. I'm leaving this party at 10 o'clock. Boundary setting. I need to, say no to that activity tonight because you know what? I've had a tough day. I'm not gonna go out for cocktails tonight. Like you just got a boundary set, but it's
Oh, good. So I as a business coach, I'll say it's a stoplight. Red is personal time. It's blocked. It's non-negotiable, non-negotiable. I get to sleep. I get to eat lunch. I get to have a date night. I get to have a family night. I have, you know, I call it paste and patch day, whatever,
nice.
and then greens when you're making money, which unless you have a trust fund and you're listening to this, you can just go away. But the rest of us will be working. And then the yellow time is when you work in and on. So when you've blocked your time, then it's already off the calendar and then the universe follows up with you.
I love
So
it.
yeah, so
I love it.
you have so much to share with us. And I do want to get in about the mysterious mind
Yeah. Yeah.
because to me that's important.
Thank you for sharing that one. That was my first book. It was in 2015. And the reason I wrote that one, I was in clinic. I was studying Ayurveda. I was bringing Eastern medicine into the clinic. Now, mind you, I'm going to these like long, amazing, training sessions and coming back with this juicy information. And in the clinical time, I have like 20 minutes with the patient. They've got these, migraines or neurological conditions. And I'm saying, by the way, I'd love you to just add a little bit of Ayurveda, into your daily routine. And I realized that as I was learning more, engaging more information, I decided to write it into that book. And the book looks at what is Ayurveda, what are the three doshas, and then how do you use Ayurveda to understand things like adrenal fatigue, food intolerances, because those are the big things 15 years ago. This is before dairy was considered to be something that could be inflammatory. A lot of individuals were drinking milk cold and drinking a lot of, having a lot of cheese. And we found that 70% of our migraine patients had dairy intolerances. We found that a good 35% had a grain intolerance, one of them being gluten. And we started noticing that, it wasn't necessarily celiac disease, but if we pulled people off of gluten, their headaches started improving, or they started to feel more clear. They started sleeping better. So these are food intolerances. So the book looks at those different studies I was doing and looks at Ayurveda. It has a little bit of a slant towards migraine, but it's actually kind of helpful for anyone that wants to learn about their health and Ayurveda and
Well,
specifically.
I know, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know that migraines have a lot to do with some of the birth control methods that are out there.
Yes.
Um, and then, it depends on where you carry your stress, if it's in your neck.
Hmm.
Listen, kids, you only have one body, and if you break it, where are you going to live? Okay, so I think you have to get her book. And there's so much in there that the Stress RX really goes through. Well, what you tell us, because I mean, I could go
Deep.
on for another
It's
hour.
deep. So Stress RX basically takes book one, which the mysterious mind is like, oh, here's Ayurveda, here's a little bit about migraine, here's about health, and here's looking at these deeper things like adrenal fatigue and food intolerances with an Ayurvedic lens. Then book two, I realized, hey, you know what? There's 10-year gap here because as I was seeing patients and I was kind of teaching them about food intolerances and your vata, you're excitable, let's move to the warm foods, let's do these things that are vata balancing. They would change their diet, they change some of their lifestyle, yet they kind of sometimes got stuck in a state of excitability. And I was like, wow, we changed diet. You're better. Migraines are down, but you're still kind of excitable. Well, then Stress RX came because I realized people sometimes get stuck in a state. That's where the NLP comes in here. Because then it goes into how we think and the model of the world, how we view the world. And I have this what I call the three brain model in book two. I talk about the first brain is the central nervous system. Really, it's a lot of that NLP, how we view the world and how we view and create stress. And oftentimes, events are happening. Most events, when it comes to affecting us, are neutral when it comes to affecting us. Not that the event isn't maybe a traumatic event. It's when we see and witness or hear about the event, how does it affect your physiology? We start to take in the energy of the world. And very often, what happens is then our physiology shifts because of that. So, how do you change that first brain thinking? So, book one goes into like first brain and thinking patterns and how we shift that. So then we can become more aligned because what ends up happening is the first brain affects the second brain and the third. The second is your feeling brain, your enteric nervous system. It's how you process your emotions. I found that most of my migraine patients do not process their emotions. In fact, a book by Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, one of my early books I read way back when I was reading Deepak Chopra's book. I found his book also. I think I found his first. He talked about breast cancer, and he said a lot of breast cancer patients were defensive repressors. Like you'd ask them about how was your life? How's home life? They would not want to admit. They say, no, my life is fine. Everything's great. And they would repress emotions and become even defensive about how their home life was because they didn't want to reveal. And it's interesting because you start to look at repressing emotions of anxiety and fear and anger. Well, we feel first than we think. And we all know we've walked into a room where you feel a certain way about a person or even the ambiance of the event, and then you think a thought. It happens at a split second, but the enteric is connected to the amygdala. We're first perceiving at a subconscious level, then we consciously think. And then the third brain is the even more interesting piece is the microbiome, the 100 trillion bacteria from book one, I was finding the food intolerances, and I realized, wait a second, even though people are taking foods away, they still have this imbalanced microbiome. And I started doing microbiome testing, and I talk about the importance of their healthy microbiome because those bugs, they help you make serotonin, right? The 90% of your serotonin production and your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. So I started realizing it's a top down and bottom up thing here that the way you think affects how you feel and digest. The way you digest affects how you feel and think. So book two goes really deep into all that and your stress personality and why we get stuck, you know?
Do you see why we want to just adopt her? Because I'm telling you this book, and I've studied Ayurvedics, not like you have, but there's so much in here. Who doesn't have trauma?
Who does?
Everybody has trauma. And then you add everything that's going on in the universe, and if you're high altruistic, you take it on,
Yes.
you feel the pain, and then you carry it around with you, and it's not yours, and you could put it down. That doesn't mean you don't care. But women are,
Yeah.
we are wired for collaboration. We are wired for that. And so, if you don't take care of yourself,
Yeah.
you can't take care of anyone else. So I just feel
Yeah.
people are probably going to ask me, so how do I get in touch with this amazing woman? How do I buy her book? What if we could hire her to speak to our group? Tell us how the best way to reach you.
So best way is basically anyone's welcome to email me. My email is ask@Trupti Gokani MD. That's TRUPTIGOKANIMD.com. Ask@Trupti Gokani MD. I'm happy to answer some emails about requests or interest in things. I have on the website, Trupti Gokani MD, there's a stress quiz. I'd encourage everyone to take that quiz. It's a quick quiz. There's a little video afterwards. You get a little kind of intake assessments emailed to you. Understand your nature, understand your type, and then start to do some reading. I'd encourage you to read Mysterious Mind is available on Amazon. The Stress RX, which is this the secondary. I like the subtitle is a neurologist prescription to happiness and health. I love everyone to be happy and healthy for many, many, many years to go. It's not living a long life; it's living a healthy life for many years, right? I mean, we can. Hey, listen, we could be medicated and be frail and be in pain and live a long life, but we want to be vibrant and successful and helping and serving and doing things in this world because the world needs our help, right? And to be fully present for those that need us, right? So the book too is also it's available. Actually, it was a hybrid. It's published by Simon and Schuster. Worked with me on that one, so it's available in different bookstores. Amazon also available. Website has both links for those, and I have podcasts and other interviews that are
Yeah,
there.
go to the website because it's well done. And
Thank you.
clearly, this book, if you are at your wit's end, if you have seen doctor after doctor, if you still have the same pain that you've had, if you can't sleep, you're going to be a cranky pants, okay? And you're going to need more than Botox to look good. So find her book, read the book, and you have to, Trupti, you have to join us again because I would like to go through almost every chapter with you
Do it.
and do some work on so we can spread the word. Because, like you said, people can't always read. Is there an audiobook on this?
Working on it, and that requires
Yeah.
me in 2 weeks to record it, and so that 2 week time has just not been available lately. So
Oh, trust having done a couple of
yeah,
audiobooks, it's a lot of work. But
you know.
but when you think about it, we have.
Yeah,
So people say, I have children, I take care of parents, I do this. You always have 15 or 20 minutes in the morning while you're brushing your teeth and hopefully brushing your hair or
yeah,
putting it in, whatever you've
yeah,
got.
yeah.
And that's why audiobooks work well as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, from the Women's Wisdom Network, we love sharing women and showcasing their special gifts. And certainly you've contributed here. I want to thank you for joining us, and we are having her back. And go to the Women's Wisdom Network on the Facebook community and let us know how we can help you. I'm Terri Murphy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.